Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's E-G-G-B-U-R-T, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
Who dumped a whole truckload of fizzies into the swim meet? Who delivered the medical school cadavers to the alumni dinner? Every Halloween, the trees are filled with underwear. Every spring, the toilets explode.
That's one of the radio stations I worked at. That was my boss giving a little dissertation there. Okay. John, are you good to go? Are we back in contact?
I am, yeah. I'm not sure. Hopefully the microphone will pick up well at this point, and then I'll try to minimize the car noise.
Sounds good. Okay, you're always looking at the Post-Dispatch, and you have a bunch of big, good stories, and you have your little thing that you avoid the paywall. Yesterday, I always find it interesting when there was more coming out about this terrible situation with the police officer who was killed, allegedly, we have to still use that, allegedly killed by the illegal immigrant. That was like the fourth or fifth story down. The top story on the Post-Dispatch website, at least when I looked at it yesterday morning, was the story of KDHX. And I'm going like, why in the world is that even a top story? Can you understand why? Is this like the cause du jour of the liberal elite press that they have to talk about KDHX? And for those of you who don't know what KDHX is, how would you put it, John? A bunch of aging hippies who have a radio station who still think they're relevant? Would that be maybe sort of a good...
Yeah, I would describe it as probably the original hipster radio station. So before there was St. Louis Public Radio, for kind of the liberal, cool, I have a beard and I drink IPAs and say, not too happy. That'd be KDHX.
Well... apparently, as in a lot of organizations, somebody comes in and takes over the organization. Matter of fact, here, I'm looking at the story right now. A year after firing 10 DJs, KDHX is foundering. Can it right the ship? Okay, first off, they moved from their location in South City, where I think they might have owned the building. They had to move to Grand Station, Grand Center, whatever, where KWMU is. Which is that like? Would you consider that to be like hipster central? That area right there around the Fox and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, that kind of the Grove area. Yeah.
Right. Well, but it's a not-for-profit radio station. And they get a new lady who's running it, and the board got sort of weird, and most of the people don't get paid. They're volunteers, and they fire a bunch of them, and then they wonder why they're not doing well. And I'm going like, I don't get it, and I know someone who for years and years and years, her and her husband wrote a nice sizable check to KDHX every year. And I guess about a year ago, I said something to her about this, and she says, "Oh, we don't do that anymore." And I go, "Why is that?" She goes, "It's not looking good because of the fact that there's, allegedly this going on and that going on, which is sort of sad." But I don't really understand the whole super interest in this because of the fact in the realm of things, KDHX just doesn't seem like it's top, like if this were a newspaper, this would be above the fold, below the banner type story. Get what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, I get exactly what you mean, but also think of who the Post-Dispatch as the circulation erodes. You have more, I guess, what you could call them hardcore people. So, Brad, I would draw the parallel here to the stories and the local media obsession with the Riverfront Times. So you have a relatively small, hardcore group of people who really care about that topic. And in fact, there's a big opinion piece on St. Louis Public Radio today. I linked to it. I guess it's presented as kind of a news story, but there's a woman who was formerly managing editor of the Riverfront Times who, according to her bio, I guess she was one of the people that unfortunately lost their jobs back in May when Big Lou Media shut down Riverfront Times. Anyway, she goes into kind of a detailed thing about how this gentleman runs OnlyFans and kind of how he's an eccentric guy. She paints him as kind of a strange Burning Man type of man. But if you're in that small clique of people that really cares about indie, like I guess you could call it hipster media, then you really care about KDHX and you really care about the Riverfront Times, whereas most people, I think, aren't that interested in that.
It's funny you should mention that because I did see that on your list this morning, and I did start to read that. And once again, the guy's apparently he's got money. He and they won't disclose the price, and they don't really even know. They're sort of prophesizing who it is. I mean, they think they know who the owner is, but they're not 100% sure. And matter of fact, you and I got mentioned on their Twitter feed, their X feed. What was that? A couple weeks ago, they referenced us.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice mention from them because they pointed out the fact they did it in kind of Yelp review style. And they said that the Brad and John show said, it sounds like it was written by a human. And they made it look like we gave them 5 stars. So I thought that was a nice, humorous shout out there, Brad.
Okay. John has said that there are people that comment about the stupid stuff I say, but he will never tell me who they are, and he will never confirm the fact that I believe it's Governor Parson and Mike Kehoe who are contacting John, because John's one of those guys, he rubs elbows with the biggest of the big, but he won't ever tell me who it is, okay? I have, and it's growing to about 4 now, women who listen to the show who make interesting comments about my co-host John Combest. John, and you're a tough guy. You're ready for this, right?
Oh yeah, I'd love to hear it. So just to be clear, could you fit all of the critics in a Subaru, or would you need something like that carries a heavier, like sturdier load?
No.
So it's a whole 4 people. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah,
I do want to hear the feedback.
Here is. I won't read the entire text, but. Are you ready? You sure you can handle that? John, you sure you can handle this? You're okay with this? I just lost John. Obviously, I'm not going to do this.
Brad, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, here we go. This was written yesterday. You can tell him tomorrow one of your listeners has requested you duct tape his mouth. Hold on a minute. Never mind, go my phone. He'll assume it's Agnes. He'll say it absolutely makes no difference to him what some short-haired, non-ovulatory female who rides around PetSmart on her obesity scooter in her ill-fitting yoga pants and comfortable shoes thinks. Then he'll lay into me, with a bunch of defensive, snarky comments because he cares very much about what a man like you thinks about him, and deep down he knows he'll never measure up. So take that, John Combest.
That's good. That's really good. So one of the greatest books ever, Brad, is called The Rational Male.
Yes.
And it's by a guy named Rollo Tomasi. And Rollo lays out the most common kind of angry, defensive attacks from women. And one of them is probably the primary go-to is, quote, that guy will never measure up. So it's good to hear that we're fulfilling that cliche, Brad. And you know what? The reader does have a point, Brad. I do care. I said reader. The listener does have a point. I do care what you think, and you are a relevant person. And so when you make comments, Brad, I just like any kind of relevant criticism or critique, I appreciate the comments that you make, Brad. And I appreciate the comments from other people who are constructive and who know what they're talking about.
Well, you can tell they're a regular listener because they're using all your keywords that you use all the time. The short hair.
Well, let's get to another one, Brad.
Well, that's the only one I'm going to read this morning because that was the one that I thought was sort of interesting. Where I'm supposed to duct tape your mouth. That's what I'm supposed to do. But
now, Brad, do you think that if you were, say, an armchair psychologist, would you? And I'm going to be cautious here because I have beautiful offspring in the car with me as a co-pilot. Do you think that somebody that talks about duct taping somebody's mouth, do you think there might be a little bit of, I don't know, latent desire going on?
I'm not going to touch that, John. I'm just going to move.
I mean,
on.
Is that someone that's healthy, that has a healthy outlet for those feelings? You get what I'm saying? Whether postmenopausal or not, do you think that somebody that has a healthy outlook on being put in their place would fantasize about duct tape?
Are you sort of hinting that this might be like going down the P. Diddy trail, so to speak?
No, but Brad, that's one of those rare topics that we haven't touched on. And in fact, on Annie Fry's show yesterday, Will Scharf weighed in on that. I didn't listen to Will's comments yet because I was more focused on his illegal alien stuff. But yeah, I started off in the camp, Brad, where I said that all this Diddy stuff is completely manufactured and it's all fake. And then as we read more and more of the indictment, it's like, ooh, there's something there.
Well, I think there's a lot of parallels between him and Jeffrey Epstein, because if you notice, a lot of the Hollywood elite are not saying much, which was sort of the same thing that happened with Epstein, because of the fact that they're not saying much because they were there. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't they.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's also like, not only might they be incriminating themselves, but I think there's a little bit there of there's probably a little bit about not wanting to pile on. And also, I think there's a little bit of, if he actually comes out of this, they might not want to be castigated from his inner crew. I don't know.
Okay. Article yesterday, and I found interesting, and it's sort of like, matter of fact, I wanted to talk about this a little bit more, but I'm saying the problem with the Republican Party is it's the party of nerds, okay? And what we need to do is we need to do what sports teams do. We need to recruit people. We need to go to George Clooney as Republicans go to, and once again, if anything, when I say we, I'm not talking that I am a card-carrying member of the Republican Party. If anything, I'm a libertarian, okay? But the Republicans need to go to George Clooney and say, George, how much would it cost for you to come over to our side? Matter of fact, what if we got you another place in Italy? What if we got you, car service everywhere you went for the rest of your life? When you're 95 years old and nobody cares about you anymore because you're not the sex symbol anymore, you'll still be picked up no matter where you're at. Because once again, it's sort of like what's going on right now with football on the college level. Matter of fact, I don't know if you saw this. I thought this was interesting. There's like a number 2 recruit in the nation, and he plays for one of the smaller, I can't remember what part of the state it is. He's in Missouri. So what did Eli Drinkwitz do to show up at one of these games the other night to make an impression on this kid? You know this story?
No, I haven't heard this.
He flew in a helicopter. A helicopter purposely overflew the field, made a couple loops around the field, and it landed in a field off from the football stadium where they were playing, and a golf cart came out to pick up Drinkwitz, and they drove him over to the game, and he stood on the sidelines and watched this kid play. Okay, so you're thinking to myself, I'm thinking to myself, wow, this guy came to see me. He's the big cheese at Mizzou. He flies it in a helicopter. I'm impressed. Okay, so that's what I'm saying the Republicans need. Okay, but here, let me go on to this. Vivek Ramaswamy warns GOP could be in for, quote, rude surprise unless they answer who they are, which I think is fascinating. He goes on to talk about the fact that when he was traveling the country, and he still travels the country, he talks to people, he says, get rid of the Democratic mantra, get rid of the Republican mantra. He says 70 to 80% of the people in the country are on the same side. What do they want? They want a safe neighborhood. They want good schools, sort of like what we talked about, like when you talked about, the interview that Steve Ellman, the county executive of St. Charles County, gave, where he was asked, why do people move to St. Charles County? He said 2 things: safety and good schools. And once again, we talked about this. The city of St. Louis has just the opposite of that: bad schools and not safe. Okay, so Ramaswamy says, look, there's 70, 80% of the people that agree with these precepts about we want to have a safe environment, we want to have good schools, we want to have a place where we can have our family, we can run our business. The government should stay back a little bit. Why doesn't the Republican Party address this? Instead, what do we hear? Trump's talking about eating cats, and now the new thing is the guy who's lieutenant governor from North Carolina, who's a black dude. Supposedly he was on a porn site 10 years ago claiming he was a black Nazi. I'm going like, okay, enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think the positive part about what Vivek said, and that makes sense, is that the party has to define itself. And I think this is the biggest challenge post-Trump, the party since 2016 has been defined by Donald Trump. And eventually, even if you're the biggest Trump supporter, you know that maybe after 4 more years, we have to define ourselves by something other than we like Trump versus the people who don't like Trump. So I agree with that. But Brad, the notion that you put forth, which is that, hey, 70 to 80% of people agree on most things. This is the type of idea that said, we're going to elect Ross Perot to be president. Or this is the idea of the no labels party. And they don't come to fruition because you have to play the game that's laid out before you with the rules that are already established. And as much as we all love the iconoclast and the disruptor, it doesn't work. Ask President Ross Perot if it works. Ask this skinny mini guy that's running against Josh Hawley, this beanpole guy that's starting some imaginary new party. Ask him what percent he's going to get in November.
Yeah, but the problem on that is, John, and I will say right up front, the problem on that is, and the perfect example is, look at the Robert F. Kennedy thing. The Robert F. Kennedy thing was the Democrats fought to keep him off the ballots in all these states. Now that he endorses Trump, they're fighting him to keep him on the ballots. So in other words,
you're exactly right. That's
in other words, what they're doing is they're just essentially what I say. Matter of fact, tomorrow I'll tell you the story. Smash, the Smash, I know him personally. I know Smash personally. He called me yesterday and he told me a really funny story of his very early days in the radio business, which is not necessarily a radio story. It's a story that I champion all the time. And it was so funny because he was so on track with this. And it was just to the point where it's like, okay, this is like too good to be true. I need to tell the story. I tell it tomorrow. Okay?
But real quick, I don't mean to spoil it for you, but he wasn't involved in the radio. And then every week he called in to 911 to report, a dead dog by the side of the road or a squirrel he saw. And the dispatcher said, "Sir, you have such a beautiful voice. You should be a radio host." I don't mean to spoil your story for tomorrow, Brad, but that's what happened, right?
No.
And your point is that we should always call in 911.
No, what you don't realize is Smash is a musician, and years ago he had a hit song, but he did it under a different name. He didn't do it under his name, Smash or Asher Benrubi. He reported dead skunks in the middle of the road to 911, and he had a big hit with that song. But he'd never claim it because of the fact he used a pseudonym because he didn't want anybody to know that was him doing the 911 calls to the police to report dead skunks. So. And you know what? And the dead skunks were in the middle of the road, and you know what? They were stinking to high heaven. You don't know that song, do you?
I don't know that at all. In fact, it's so bad. That story is so bad that there's a local police officer speeding right past me right now.
Right. And you know why? Because I called 911 because I saw the accident up ahead of you, and I've warned you before you got there. So that police officer is going to get there.
They said John Combest is on the phone while driving, which breaks a Missouri traffic law.
Right,
get him, officer.
Okay. Have a good day, John.
You too, Brad. Bye-bye.